Hi everybody, welcome back to DayZ, and in this video I want to address one of these rather funny problems that pops up every now and again as a question in my comments, or sometimes I get emails, or sometimes on my Discord, and that is when vehicles start appearing in places where they really shouldn't. So that's quite a funny one. That one's spawned in inside a container, and if we go up here, there's some funny ones up here as well. Let's have a look at these. As you can see, these ones they think they should be part of a supply drop dynamic event. So instead of just cans of Pepsi and that sort of thing, it's spawned in a couple of vehicles. So if you find vehicles are spawning in places where they shouldn't be, like at events or in houses or in containers, and not where you would expect them, chances are there's a couple of things that may have happened. The first thing is you may well have gone into your types.xml file and you may have added nominal values to vehicles, like I have here, to kind of simulate this problem. Now really what should happen is all your vehicles should have 0 nominal and 0 min against them. Okay, you should never put them with nominals of anything, and the reason for this is because vehicles aren't ground loot. They don't spawn in as part of the type central economy. They spawn in as part of an event, and when an event spawns in this case vehicle off-road 02 or vehicle off-road 02 or vehicle off-road hatchback, the server looks at a file called CFG event spawns and will spawn them in the correct place and combine that with the events.xml at the correct number as well. So your types.xml, which control things like how many baked bean cans spawn in or weapons and stuff like that, it shouldn't have values against the vehicles. Now the vehicles have to be here, because if something doesn't have it, let's find a. So it should look, for example, something like this. But the vehicles have to be here, because unless an object has an entry in the types.xml, it will just despawn. The server will just despawn because it won't know what it is, and it will just despawn it. So you'll find that most of the things that are spawned in as dynamic events, things like trains and things like that as well, they'll all have an entry here, as do the vehicles, but it should always be 0 nominal and 0 minimum, because they're spawned in via an event. So first thing would be to go and have a look at the various entries for these different types and make sure they are 0. Another real common thing though is that you will have made a mistake somewhere when editing your types.xml, which will have caused something called a cascading error. Now, because these are XML files, what happens is it's very easy to accidentally delete something like a closing tag or just a bracket or something. And what that can lead to is an error somewhere further up the file causes a problem further down the file. So you may look at an entry and go, well, it all looks okay here, but that's because the error is somewhere up here or below. And the way that you can catch that is if you use something like an online XML validator. And I'll put a link to this one in the description below this video. So you just go here and you say choose the file, it will look at it and it will tell you that where there's an error. Now, again, if it's a cascading error, it could be that you have to look back up through the file to find where the error starts. So you might well correct something and then you'll still get an error, and you keep working your way back through. It just so happens that the problem with the types file is that it's the one that we mess around with quite a lot, because it has spawn values in there, but it's also really large. So when you're editing your types.xml, it's easy to make mistakes because you'll have probably been doing it for too long. And then when you do make a mistake, it's difficult to find it. But they're the things. If the worst comes to the worst, remember you can go to the GitHub of Bohemia Interactive, go to the DayZ Central Economy GitHub, and you can download a zip of the latest mission files, of which in these there will be, if we go in here, there you've got the latest vanilla types. So what I'll do is I'll put a link to this file, this GitHub, in the description below this video as well. So there we go. If you find vehicles spawning in, or it could even be helicopters actually, things like that, spawning in places where they shouldn't do, chances are you've got a mistake somewhere in your types.xml. Probably something like you've put a nominal or a min against the vehicle, which you shouldn't have, or there's some sort of cascading error. So if you use a XML validator, you may well find it, because vehicles should only be spawned in by events. And if the worst comes to the worst, grab yourself the vanilla file and start again. Okay, so hopefully this has been useful. If it has, hit like. If you want to see more of the same, press subscribe, and of course I'll see you again soon.